So welcome. I'm very excited today to have Amanda Gifford with us. And I've been so excited to talk to her because Family Constellations is such an incredible way. It offers so many things. And I was just saying to Amanda, we need to understand exactly what it is. And she said it's like so voluminous, it's going to take ages to just explain it. So we're going to try and just upfront describe what family constellations are, and then Amanda's offering a course which is over between a year and 17 months, but it's 1 day a month or 2 days a month, but it's all about remote viewing and family constellations. And I just picked up on this course because I feel that it's so pertinent at this time that people are able to use a lot of their own knowing and understanding, because the future is so uncertain and so many people are going different ways and doing different things. So this is something I think that you can use personally for yourself to strengthen your own knowing field, and then also on family and friends or relatives, and then you can also develop it into a qualification that you can use professionally. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct.
Super. So Amanda, just give us a little understanding of what family constellations is. It's a system of therapy, right?
So it's family constellations comes from a guy called Bert Hellinger from Germany, who came out to South Africa as a priest in the 50s. And he started studying with the Zulus, with the Sangomas. And he studied their traditions and their ways and put it into a systemic form of healing. And then he took it back to Europe and kind of cross sort of hybridized it with phenomenology and existentialism and that kind of thing. But basically the bottom line is that there's this thing called the knowing field, which is kind of the subconscious field or the quantum field that we can tap into and get answers about. So it doesn't matter whether you're inquiring into your ancestral lineage or something about your own systemic field. It could be like your body, your health. You know, it can be very applied. But it's a technique of using this innate gift that we have to tap into this quantum field, the sea of consciousness, and decode it, to really decode it, get the information through concentrating on what it is that we want to know. And then we reorganize the field and then re-internalize it. So that's a very small.
Yeah, I just absolutely love the idea of having a knowing field that we can walk into and find the information that we want to. And I think it's extra specially, it's so beautiful that Bert Hellinger came over and studied the whole Ubuntu and all of that and blended it with, so it makes it even more special for South Africans. Or for
Africans. Right, it actually originates here from KwaZulu-Natal. So we are at the heartbeat of this ancestral knowing field, you could say.
Yes. So Amanda, so there's a structure that you follow. So you set up the knowing field and then you sort of walk into it and you begin to organize energies or information or knowledge. Is that right?
Well, the knowing field is always there. It's just a matter of, setting up an intention around what it is that you would like to know. And then if you, for example, if you're in a group field and you're working with a client who has maybe something that goes back through the generations and you want to do a generational healing piece, then you can possibly use people, say 6 people, to work with 6 generations back. And each of those people in a group setting they become representatives of the ancestral line. And each person will pick up something from this quantum field of consciousness they will pick
Right.
up something about the lineage and the person that they're representing, even if that person is long, long, long gone. And so
Right.
once that information gets downloaded into the field that we can then work with, then, you know, we can do some work with memory, basically. We work to reorganize memory. So the field
Right.
is then not stuck in a, say, for example, there can be like a trauma memory field that's flowing ancestrally through the lineage. And you actually literally dealing with that soul.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
helping them, you know,
Yes. So you actually can
rehabilitate.
heal. So you can actually heal in the past
Yeah.
field as well as
Yeah.
yeah.
You can reorganize a whole memory field so that it's flowing and it's clean and it's fresh and it's no longer stuck, so that your stream that's running into you ancestrally from behind is not passing unconscious behaviors forward one generation after the next, which often happens.
Right.
And then you get
I
to
remember
inherit that.
Yes, so I did a constellation with somebody once before called Pat Bastani, and she did it with dolls. So it was so long ago, but I just remember I placed all these dolls, and it was my mother and my mother's mother and my mother's mother, and all the way back. So there's about 5 or 6 of them. And she said, place them on the table. So I placed them, and she said to me, why are they all facing away? So I said, I don't know. And then she said, oh, we need to turn them around, you know, because all of them had, you know, suffered some kind of repression or whatever. So in turning all of them around, that made me feel incredibly empowered, and like I had all the strength of all the women, you know, in my lineage behind me. Now we're all facing the right way, and I carry that. So it was so beneficial in that respect.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You can do individual work with sort of projective items, and then you can put the field out as it's sitting inside of you currently. So direction and distance and all that kind of thing count, you know, in terms of what is happening in this field. And then you work with that.
So we always hear about the ancestors, and we, you know, it's like a lot of people think, oh, it's just got to do with sangomas or whatever, but actually it's quite interesting, the energy that gets trapped in families. Like I also heard the story of somebody who wanted to go and marry somebody who was of a different faith. I think it was somebody who wanted to marry somebody who was Jewish. And the family kind of disowned them, and that person was just never spoken about. It was though they weren't part of the family. And then 3 generations later, there was somebody who just loved Jewish men and wanted to always date Jewish men, and it was connected to that energy. She wanted to, in a way, bring that acceptance back into the family. So yeah, do you relate to that? Is that some of the issues that come up in family constellation, the way we can understand sort of strange kind of proclivities or behaviors, or like somebody who wants to commit suicide a lot and then nobody understands where it comes from? Do you find that?
Yeah. So, you know, every facilitator has a different style and approach and philosophy that they bring to the constellations. And I am quite open to, you know, working with people around the fact that there might be a past life issue, for example, that's coming up. But I always check with people, if they don't work within that paradigm, then, you know, we work within the paradigm that they are in. But I often find that if there's like a persisting theme, it can be linked to a past life issue, and that all those kinds of things, issues of belonging and who's in the field and who's left out, and patterns that repeat, you know, lessons that repeat, etc., that haven't been completed. Those things,
and
can be worked with.
you talk about alliances and contracts, and so like you often see in a family that two people are immensely close and somebody else feels left out. So it explains. It can explain all of that if you walk into the knowing field, step into the knowing field.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting ways to work, like, for example, with disease. If somebody is sick and they don't, can't quite find the source of it, you can actually you can get someone to be the representative of the disease, for example, and let that disease, like let's say someone's got cancer or something, let it speak, see what it has to say, and see if there's a match for someone in the field ancestrally that may have been pushed away or never had a voice, etc. And there's often a match to a person. Then you can put them both together and find out what was unresolved and bring some of that information up from the subconscious. And it helps a lot. I've had a lot of people resolve a lot of things.
So Amanda, how would that work? So say I've got cancer and I want to step into the knowing field. So I would appoint Johnny over there as my cancer. So Johnny would represent my cancer.
Yes, if you're in a group, then it would be someone to represent you, someone to represent the issue that you're working with. Put them both out, you enroll them, you put them into the space, and basically you watch to see what it is that is the dynamic, and you check in with the representative. What is it that they're picking up? What's going on? And inevitably they are getting downloads of information. So our subconscious downloads information in the same way as, like, for example, a remote viewer who's looking at information from a distance without physically being present. You can, it's similar concept. It's this idea of non-locality. We can access information that is not physically present at a distance through concentration and presence.
Wow, that's really, really exciting. That's actually so amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So you find that, okay, so say I'm working in a group and then Johnny's representing cancer, whatever, and you find that, say, Johnny in that respect would quite easily start speaking from the perspective of cancer. It just sort of arises.
Yes, it's very easy. It's not like anybody has to be worried about being able to be a sort of, $1 million remote viewer or anything like that. And everyone gets the information. It sort of arises in the field, and it doesn't really matter whether it's 100% right or wrong. You just trust what is surfacing, and then you work with that feedback to the client, because inevitably what's happening in front of you, I also like to see it as, like, in Buddhist meditation, you've got your beads, and they use 108 beads to keep the conscious mind busy while the subconscious mind does some work, so that the conscious mind stays out of the way. And so in some ways, even though you're busy with a constellation in front of you, the client that's sitting there watching it is also doing a lot of inner work at the same time. Their subconscious is like reorganizing things and surfacing information. So you don't have to do huge amounts of work in order to have big effects for the person that's working.
Right. Okay, stunning. And then, so tell us about the course. So how do you actually teach such a thing? I mean, or how do you orientate people in a way that they're able to use it? Do you have a specific program that you follow? Or is it a lot of group work, a lot of practical stuff, or how?
So normally a full course is about 3 years. So I'm really just offering like a first year type training, like a foundational training. Okay, and then so if people want to go on and complete the training, then there's other requirements. So it's about 3 years to complete your training to become a facilitator.
So full-on family constellations qualifications, it takes 3 years.
Yes, it takes 3 years. And there's, yeah, there's a specific amount of hours and supervision and that kind of thing. So what I hope to do is give people a lot of personal experience. So I want it to be a personal development course. And I put down the foundations, and then some applications and a lot of wonderful theoretical, what could you say, like tenets. But then also I'm going to be encouraging people to do practice, so personal practice. So for example, if you have a personal practice in something and your thought is oriented towards something,
yeah,
then you might work your constellation practice towards that particular theoretical thought direction, you could say. And so I would want to find out where each person's strength is. Like, for example, because constellations can be used as an embodiment tool for healing and knowing through many methodologies and many theoretical approaches. So if you are, say, a Tantra teacher, let's just say, for example, or a Buddhist or whatever, and the way that you think about healing is in a certain way, then I would want to help people learn to use their constellations in the way that they are strongest with their thinking.
Okay, so you can patch it onto any kind of philosophy or healing or therapy that you already have or already using.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
work in conjunction with that.
Yeah, because your mind is already organizing the field like that. So, it's helpful to, if somebody's already got a system in their mind, it's helpful because this is systemic, to know how to marry the two together.
Okay, so now, Amanda, if somebody wanted to do the course for personal development, do they have to enlist a group when they want to do their own constellations, or can they do it with like dolls, or is there some other way they can do it, or how would they use it?
If somebody wants to do their own constellation. Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
So yeah, if somebody's doing the course,
yes,
without intending to practice constellations on their family or other people, but they're doing it for themselves because they want to benefit from their own self-development, could they do constellations on themselves?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of techniques that you can learn to work with yourself individually, with paper on the floor. It's like almost like doing a tarot reading for yourself. What is emerging? What are the themes? Can you stand in this person's place? What is it that they are thinking? That kind of thing. So it's a little bit like dowsing. You're trying to surface information, and from that you can make decisions based on new information.
Because there's a lot of beautiful books and research coming out now, about the issues in the tissue and the body speaks and all of that kind of stuff. So actually all the information that we need is already inside us. So family constellations is a way of, and the knowing field is a way of getting that information to come to the surface, so that it's not elusive as to why you have a certain pattern of behavior, or why you have a certain disease, or things like that.
Yeah, you can know anything. You just have to put your mind onto it, and then you get systems of knowing. And this is just one. And there's many applications. Very creative field. Very creative.
Okay, that's wonderful. So you'll teach all these different methods to people, and then you'll get them to practice it. And so by the end of the course, somebody will be sort of quite proficient in going into the knowing field. And
yes, you will have your basics in place in terms of how to apply basic constellations, but you will have done a lot of personal work, which is the most important in terms of internalizing, because when you get an embodied practice, your body needs to have the experience so it can get internalized like that. So my training, I did 3 years twice. So 2 courses of 3 years. And
Wow.
every time it was like I was still absorbing this learning into my being. So in a way, it is like a lifetime's worth of learning. And I do encourage people who already have some kind of a system that they're working with, you know, to bring that forward. But if they don't, then we put some foundations in place.
You mean some kind of a system like EFT or
Yes.
TRE or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
massage or
That's right. Whatever your particular practice already is, then, you know, we can begin to work with that, and then just see. I'll give you techniques. You'll have a lot of experience. You will have the theory, and there'll be supervision. So towards the end or halfway through, towards the second half of our training, you'll be working in small groups, and I will be supervising that, just to see how are you thinking, how are you doing, you know, what parts of the system are you using.
Okay, and how many, what's an ideal group to have on this course? How many people can you take?
Well, I mean, anywhere between 8 and sort of 17 is what I'm looking at. Yeah.
And the commitment is 1 full day or 2 full days per month?
Yes, I'm going to start with 2 days and then 2 days. So end of February, end of March, and then April, I'm going to start, after the first third of our course, we're going to assess where people's energies are at and just see if they're managing with the 2 days. And if it's needed to be 1 day and then integration through videos and online and exercises and homework, then we'll shift that. So it's the people will dictate the amount of time per month.
Just according to the group, what fits in with them.
Yeah.
And Amanda, do you find, does it come quite quickly? I mean, does one get a lot of meat out of it in quite sort of in the early stages of it? I can imagine it being very exciting to.
It depends on the person. It depends on your experience. If you've done a lot of work on yourself and you've attended it and you get a sense of what it actually is, you know, and how to work with it. If you've practiced your facilitation before, then it can come very quickly. If you have done less work on yourself and maybe you're working through layers of your own trauma or story, then actually facilitating this is the last thing that's on your mind. So it really depends on who's in the course, and it addresses and caters for everybody.
Okay, super. Okay, so it doesn't matter man, woman, doesn't matter age or whatever. So
or where you are, you know, we're going to work online, and ideally I'd like to get find some time to get to people in person as well. So I'd like to have a small training supervision group in Cape Town that I will come to a couple of times. Yeah, so that we can have contact, because that will be important.
Okay, so because you're based in Johannesburg.
I'm in Johannesburg. Yeah, so the most part of the training will be online, and if people miss the Zoom events, the live Zoom events, then it will be recorded and uploaded, unlisted, for people that are part of the training to watch in their own time.
And you find that you use your training in the knowing field. I mean, I would imagine using it all the time. I mean,
all the time.
Go into, and then it probably becomes quite automatic. So you actually, you know, have a much deeper level of experience in your normal day. Because
I use it all the time. And in my practice, I'm a qualified psychologist, and I teach some of the foundational work that I use. I'll be teaching on the course. So some very, very simple, almost like coaching based exercises that people can take and apply in their practice simply. So I'll be teaching some of that.
And Amanda, you've got a lot of qualifications behind you. I see you did some drama and psychology and all kinds of things. Give us a quick rundown on your background, how you came to discover all these different types of therapies and what drove you in that direction.
So I wanted to combine spirituality, arts, and science, and
Wow.
I ended up doing drama, in high school at UCT, and I actually found it so therapeutic. And so I went quite far with drama, and then drama therapy became a theme. It was like, but there was no drama therapy anywhere.
Yes,
So a small group of us, about 7 of us, went to different universities overseas. And I went to the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco and studied there for 4 years and had the most incredible teachers. And one of the things that came up was family constellations. And family constellations has got like a cousin, you could say, in psychodrama. So psychodrama is also this projective method where you kind of project out the image or the story that's playing inside of you, and you look at it and you explore it in different ways. And then once it's shifted in terms of your perception, you re-internalize it, and you're then looking through a new window of perception, and that radically changes the way that all the way down to the DNA, because we know through, like, for example, epigenetics, that your DNA is not fixed. It's just a product of your perception.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, beautiful new advancement that people are doing now, so that we really have some amazing, incredible information and techniques to work with.
Yeah, and so many fields that are complementing each other. This understanding of recalibrating a field and downloads and uploads, and it can be applied to, I don't know, space. I mean, people are into galactic work at the moment. There's all sorts of things. People can learn to become very telepathic through this methodology as well, because you are paying attention to the information that you're receiving in your mind, the impressions that you're receiving in your mind. And so that is a good practice for both learning to remote view, which is seeing information at a distance, and telepathy. So you become very sensitized in that way.
I suppose you get used to letting go of just knowing what's in front of you and start getting to pull information from all kinds of different places and timelines and things like that. It's just, opening yourself up to a new way of receiving information. And
right. Yeah, less linear, more non-linear.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure, Robyn. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I think this is one of the most exciting courses that anybody can go on.
Yeah, it's very exciting because people don't realize, we forget what is right in front of us and the technology that we already are.
Yeah, and we're so used to getting our information from the news, but now with all fake news and everything, people are kind of like deer in the headlights, not knowing which way to turn. So I always think that now is such a good time to turn inwards and to strengthen our intuition and our knowing, and so that we can determine what's right and good for ourselves.
Absolutely. No, our inner truth is the key for now, for sure.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Amanda.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And we'll see you soon.
Yes. Okay, so anyway, well, I'll stop the video there.
Okay, I'll just stop the recording.
Stop the recording, and then we can just chat some
video. Just hang on.